we doing, Auburn family? Welcome back to Week 7 of Strictly Auburn. I'm Jake Lazarus. I'm here with Connor King and Eli Lingo. How we doing, guys?
Good.
Doing good. I'm excited for this game. I'll always be excited for the football games, but I'm doing good.
Let's get it. Yeah, Week 7, Auburn Tigers are taking on the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford this weekend. Ole Miss is coming off a 52-28 win in Nashville when they took on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Ole Miss looked really good. They were a pretty streaky team last week on both offense and defense. Played a rocky first 30 minutes of the game, but in the second half came out swinging. Eli, what did you see from the Rebels last weekend on the offensive side of the ball that stood out to you?
Jackson Dart looks like he uses his legs a lot more than I thought he would, and he knows how to throw the football really well. He's got a really good receiver, Jonathan Mingo, that he can throw it to, and they also have two really good, strong running backs with Keyshawn Judkins and Zach Evans. So on the offensive side of the ball, they looked really sharp, and it's going to be a big test for our defense for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned their two running backs, Quinshawn Judkins and Zach Evans. Last Saturday was the first time this season that the Rebels were held to that both guys were held to under 100 yards. Connor, how about the defensive side of the ball? Because I know Ole Miss has been leading the SEC in points per game given up.
Yeah, it really just proved how good Vanderbilt's offense is and how bad their defense is too. In the first half, Ole Miss could not cover anything. Vanderbilt was scoring in almost every drive, or they'd get pretty close. And during the second half, they definitely doubled down, and they played a really good second half defensively. But regardless, giving up 28 points to Vanderbilt is not a standard for a top 10 team whatsoever. So they definitely have some holes in their DBs and their linebackers, but they have a lot of room for improvement, but they're not the worst defense in the SEC.
And can I mention one thing about the defense?
Yeah, go for it.
So they have two Auburn transfers, J.J. Pegues at nose tackle, and they also got Ladarius Tennyson at safety. So that's just a thing to look out for their defense, see how those guys perform, because they're former Auburn guys. So
yeah, two friends turned foe. So we got so the Ole Miss defense, they've allowed just 14.5 points per game this season. Vanderbilt putting up the most points on them in 2022. And the Auburn strength this year has been their run game, and Ole Miss has allowed just 3.1 yards per carry. So that's a number to keep an eye out for. Auburn hasn't lost to Ole Miss since 2015, and they haven't lost in Oxford since, I think, 2012? So a couple big wins since then. Auburn upset Ole Miss last year at home in Jordan-Hare. That was a lot of fun. I know I was at that game. Connor, I know you're a freshman, but I don't know if you were there. Eli, that game was rocking.
Yeah, that game was electric for sure. I think that was one of the first games that we got to experience the lights, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it was a crazy
game,
experience.
Big time swag surfing, Jalen Simpson, game-winning interception. That game was so much fun.
Miss the old days, huh?
Yeah, the old days, just 365 days ago.
Yeah.
So for Auburn, though, there were some real questions heading into Georgia, and I think leaving Athens, even more questions came up than when we went in. For example, Robbie Ashford. I think we were all ready to see a breakout game in Georgia, but we were kind of left in the dust. Robbie went just 13 for 38 in the air, 165 yards, a touchdown, the first passing touchdown in Georgia in 10 years for the Tigers, and a pair of fumbles. Eli, did you see anything from Robbie that gave you a little bit of confidence going into Auburn's Week 7 matchup against the Rebels?
Well, yeah. He's a young guy, so we got to remember he's a redshirt freshman, and being thrown into this offense that wasn't built around him is a hard task to perform well in with a freshman like him. And this was his first road game, and especially a road game against a team like Georgia, who's a really good football team. But I liked his competitiveness. I like his work ethic as an athlete. He's always going to go out there and try to make the best thing happen for his team. So I think he looked good with that situation. He has to keep improving, but it's hard behind this O-line and these receivers. It's going to be a tough task for him. So he's just got to keep improving and keep playing competitive football. So hopefully we see that from him.
Yeah, I think one of the keys for any quarterback is to have short-term memory. So I'm curious to know what the coaches are telling him behind closed doors when we're not able to listen.
Yeah.
One of the letdowns from last week, Auburn in Athens, was Tank Bigsby. He got 12 touches and only put up 29 yards. Jarquez was a little bit surprising, 8 touches, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Connor, what do you think of this running back tandem heading into Week 7?
To be honest, it really shows you how each running back each week can have a different kind of game, which is really good for Auburn. Obviously, it didn't help much for us that you see Jarquez have a good game last week, but it just shows that if Tank's just not right on his legs that day, that Jarquez is right behind him or in front of him, doing something good. Both these running backs aren't bad at all, and I don't think that Tank's stats last week really reflect on how good he played. Our offensive line was just downright awful last week, and they didn't protect Robbie, they didn't protect Tank, and they really didn't protect Jarquez either. I think that this week is really important for our running backs. They both need 50-plus yards, I think, against this Ole Miss defense, and I think it would be great for both of them to score, or at least see Tank get a touchdown again.
I mean, this run game is what opens up the passing game. I think when our passing game was on, especially against LSU, we saw a lot of play-action passes because the teams were a little weary of what Tank and Jarquez can do. Tank is he will be an NFL running back, and we wish him a long NFL career. He's a projected second-round guy, so clearly there's some talent in those legs. And Jarquez is a guy who can break any touch loose. The passing game, though, has really been lackluster in 2022. They've been 11th in passing yards in the SEC, and Auburn is last in the SEC in points per game. Do you guys have anything you want to add on the Auburn offense?
Yeah, one thing with the running back, a little stat I looked up. So Tank is number 5 in the nation for yards after contact, which is he has 319, and he has 33 total missed tackles. So if you look at that stat, this Auburn O-line is struggling. I mean, as Auburn fans, we've watched every single game, and it's been hard to look at. So just going forward, this offense, they have to figure something out on the O-line to even be decent in the SEC. So that's one thing I hope to see from Auburn's offense for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've been battered a little bit in the last few weeks, just injuries and all that stuff going on. We actually picked up earlier Friday afternoon, picked up a big recruit. I'm drawing a blank on the name. Should have had that.
4-star. He's a 4-star offensive line.
Flipped him from Michigan State, turned him to Auburn. Theme of recruiting continues to be theme of recruiting continues to be I love Auburn, not as much the coaches.
Hey,
themes to look out for.
Speaking of coaches, I actually read a rumor today about the potentially having Hugh Freeze over here on the Plains, which I don't know how you guys feel about that, but he's not having the greatest season at Liberty now.
Maybe during the bye week we'll do a rumors mill episode. I feel like that might be fun.
We can definitely hit that for sure.
But yeah, so on the other side of the line of scrimmage, we can talk about the Auburn defense. That is one area that this team has had stretches of the year where they look really, really good, and they've had some stretches where they look really, really bad. Eli, I know you've had some thoughts about this Auburn class of DBs. What can you tell us about those guys heading into their matchup this week?
Well, this class of DBs is a really good group of guys. I mean, you have like 3 or 4 guys that all see the field, or about 4 guys that all see the field with, DJ James, Nehemiah Pritchett, J.K. or Simpson, and you got J.D. Rhyme, the freshman that makes an appearance every now and then. But my guy, DJ James, has really been lighting it up. I'm excited to see how he faces off against Jonathan Mingo, a 6'2", 225 receiver, he's a really good receiver, and he's a big kid. So I'm excited to see how DJ James fares against him. I think this game we'll see if DJ will actually make a stretch and get his name out there, and hopefully increases his NFL draft stock just a little bit. Yeah, but I'm excited for this.
I think the big thing for I know I've been saying this for a couple weeks, both on and off the show. I think the big thing for DJ is to be able to travel all over the field and cover and shadow the other team's best receiver. So I'm curious to see with an Ole Miss team who Jonathan Mingo, he sees 7, 8, 9 targets a game. If DJ James will actually shadow,
I would say
Mingo.
DJ James is probably a best corner on the team.
probably. I don't even.
I would say
I think
so.
at the beginning of the year I would have called that a hot take, but now I don't think.
Now
it's even
he's kind of proven
It's
it a
not
little
even
bit.
a bold take. It's a
Yeah.
should be a fact among Auburn fans.
Yeah.
Connor, what have you seen from this D front and our linebackers? Because I know that's been a little bit suspect for the Tigers this season.
To be honest, our defense, in my eyes, we're not bad at all. I think we have a great 11 guys starting, and we have some great guys that are on the sideline too that are coming out and getting reps as well. To be honest, I don't want to blame our offense for our defense's performance ever, but there's a lot of times where the defense will get off the field, and then 4 downs later, they're right back on the field. And that it doesn't matter what level, how good you are, how talented you are, athletes get tired. And when you're on the field for the majority of the game, and instead of it being about 50-50, it's more leaning towards 40-60, 30-70. That puts a wear on our guys on defensive bodies, and it's going to obviously cause poor performance. And seen a lot of missed tackles as well, a lot of arm tackles and just not fully wrapping up. And I think that's a little bit of laziness, a little bit of just fatigue as well. But either way, we need to clean it up. We need to follow through. But besides that, we have a great group of guys, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah, the talent's definitely there, but one of the stats that backs up that fatigue is the Auburn defense's inability to stop opposing offenses in the red zone. Auburn is 12th in the SEC and 96th nationally in red zone defense efficiency. So it's really key for the Tigers to keep the Rebels out of the end zone when they are down, backed up with their backs against the goal line. Let's move on to some bets for this weekend, because I think the line and the spread are both interesting heading into Week 7. Right now, the over-under is set for 54.5 points. Eli, I'll start with you. How are you feeling about that over-under line? Are you taking the over or the under?
Sadly, I'm going to take the over in Ole Miss's favor. I think they're going to score a lot of points on us, but hopefully we can throw up a couple of points. Maybe, hopefully Robbie breaks loose on a run, or I don't know. I would have to see maybe Ole Miss some busted coverages, fumble recovery, pick six, something like that, where we would see some ways to score the ball. But I'm going to take the over on that one. And I got for the cover, I'm going to take Auburn covering. Hopefully, 14.5 points. We know how to win in Oxford, so maybe we can at least make it a competitive game. But, yeah, those are my two.
Connor, what about you? What are you taking on those two?
Sadly, I have Ole Miss scoring at least 40 points. And I also have Auburn scoring a couple touchdowns, hopefully more. I hope we get into a shootout with them and blow the line out completely. That'd be great. And I think that our Auburn offense, we can score against an Ole Miss defense that's just super streaky, and they haven't been consistent at all. On the defensive side of the ball, I don't think we're going to stop Ole Miss that much. It's one of the best offenses in the country, and I see them scoring 5 to 6 touchdowns for sure. So I do.
So who do you have covering that 14.5 spread?
I do have Auburn covering. Obviously, I'm an Auburn homer. I definitely think we're going to cover, but I think
if they're going to cover that 14.5, and you're saying that you think Ole Miss is going to put up some points, Auburn's going to have to put up more than a couple touchdowns.
We're going to have to match. Oh yeah, it's going to have to be a shootout if Auburn covers. Yeah. But
so I'm gonna rock with the under on 54.5, and I think Ole Miss covers 14.5. I don't think the Auburn offense has what it takes to keep up with the Rebels' high-powered offense this year. We have some big games going on across the country in the college football landscape. None bigger than Alabama and Tennessee, but we'll get to that one in just a second. We'll start in Gainesville. We have the LSU Tigers taking on the Florida Gators. Eli, I'll start with you. Who do you got in this one?
I got Florida, I'm sorry. LSU had a really poor performance last week against Tennessee. They got destroyed in Death Valley, and I think, if they're getting blown out like that at home, I don't think they can play much better away, because that doesn't really make sense. Plus, they're playing at the Swamp, which we've talked about several times on this show, is a really insane place. And I just think Florida pulls it out at home against LSU. So
yeah, Connor.
So for the whole week, I was favoring LSU in this game. Don't really know why. I'm a little bit of a Florida hater this season. Super inconsistent, undisciplined team. But the only team that's more inconsistent and undisciplined than Florida is LSU this season. They go and they defeat Mississippi State by, I want to say, I think more than a touchdown. I might be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
But then they lose to Tennessee by 30-some-odd points last week in Death Valley. So I think Florida, being at the Swamp, they came off of a win against Missouri. I think they're on like a 2-game win streak. LSU's kind of in shambles. Ever since they beat Auburn, it seems like they've just been on a downward trend. So I have Florida here. I think it's going to be close, but I think the Gators do prevail here.
Damn, you're switching up your pre-show pick.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking like we're going to have a sweep across the board. I'm rocking with Florida in the Swamp. Eli, like you said, I think it's tough in these big SEC environments. I think the home crowd is going to prevail there. Moving on to Kentucky at home against Mississippi State, another ranked matchup, 22 taking on 16. Who do y'all have in this one? And by the way, it sounds like Will Levis is going to play this week. He missed last week due to injury when Kentucky lost to a rocky South Carolina team. But yeah, it sounds like he's going to play. Does that impact who you guys are picking, and who do you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, Will Levis is probably one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football right now, along with Hendon Hooker and guys like that. But I think Mississippi State's starting to hit their stride perfectly halfway through the season. Max Johnson's really started to connect, and they're starting to get very familiar with each other on offense, and their defense isn't playing half bad either. It's at Kentucky, which they're not really known for a crazy atmosphere. I'm sure it will be, but I got Mississippi State probably by like 7 or 10 points, because just they're hitting a good stride right now, and their offense is really starting to click. So,
Connor?
Mississippi State.
So last week I watched a little bit of the Kentucky-South Carolina game. Obviously, Will Levis wasn't playing, but the Kentucky defense couldn't stop the Gamecocks for most of the game. It seemed like Kentucky had no answers, even on the ground, too. I mean, Rodriguez played a game that he had to play, but at the end of the day, they fell way shorter than I thought. Obviously, you're not having your starting quarterback is the biggest impact you can have on a game, in my opinion. But, I think that this Mississippi State team is, actually really good, and I don't know how they lost to LSU. But besides the LSU performance, they haven't had a bad game this season. They haven't played anybody too crazy yet. Obviously, they beat A&M, but I can't tell if A&M is good or not. So I do have Mississippi State here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Wildcats and Will Levis are going to be really hungry for a win. But I just think Mississippi State is a little too consistent right now, and I think they're going to take the dub here.
Yeah, I got to rock with Kentucky for this week. Will Levis. I think Will Levis has the potential to be the first overall pick in the 22 NFL draft. About to say he was going to go in the NBA draft, but I don't know.
Hey, that'd be cool.
Be a small white guy, first overall in the NBA draft. No, but I do think he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. I do think he has a shot to go first overall. I know there's talks about Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and guys all over the country, Hendon Hooker, another one, but I think Will Levis is a pro-style guy, sits in the pocket, can really sling a rock all over the field. So for that reason, I got to take Kentucky. Probably the biggest game of the week, probably the biggest game in the last couple of years, unless you guys have a bigger game. Reigniting a rivalry that hasn't really felt like a true rivalry the last number of years because Tennessee's really fallen off. But this year they look legit. We have number 3 Alabama traveling to Knoxville to take on the number 6 Tennessee Volunteers. Who do you guys have taken this one? I know the environment in Knoxville is going to be truly one of a kind.
Yeah, Tennessee's back, man. These guys are really hitting on all cylinders on offense. And it hasn't been reported yet as the time we're filming. Well, it's going to be a game-time decision on Bryce Young, but I don't think he's going to play. He's really banged up, and I just think they want to keep him. They want to preserve him for the rest of the year. So I think they'll have the Milroy starting this game. And Alabama's offense with Milroy is not great at all. So I think Tennessee will be able to outpower their defense with their amazing offense with Hendon Hooker. I mean, he's looking like a Heisman contender right now, low key, with his arm talent. I mean, he's really starting to light it up, and it's in Knoxville, like you mentioned, Jake. That place is gonna be insane, dude. Like, I'm already hearing stories about how they're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be an insane environment. So I got Tennessee in this one.
Connor?
Knoxville's energy, I can feel it from Auburn right now. They're
Yeah.
so ready to beat Alabama, and I hope they do. It's been a really long time. Tennessee's offense is, I think, probably the best in the country right now.
Yeah.
Their defense is nothing.
Defense is a little lackluster,
really
yeah.
too good. Yeah, they are. But if Bryce Young isn't playing in this game, I don't know what Alabama can really do, to be honest. Versus A&M,
They lose.
they didn't really have much of an offense at all. And man, thankfully they were playing A&M, which is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, offense in the SEC. So with that, if Bryce Young plays, I think it'll be a shootout. I think either way, just with the environment in Knoxville, game day being there and everything, these Tennessee fans want it so bad. And
Dude, they want it
only
really
way.
bad.
This is their only way to make the playoff for the SEC championship. With playing.
Well, they play Georgia too, don't they?
every year.
Yeah.
they do. They're
Their
in the
season's
SEC,
definitely not over if they lose to Alabama.
Oh
Yeah.
no,
They can
beat
still go
Georgia.
to a playoff.
Yeah.
They can still win the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. But this game's really important. I do have the Volunteers here. I think it'll be close, unless Bryce Young plays. I think if Bryce Young doesn't play, then Tennessee wins by 10-14.
Yeah, so I'll ask you guys a question. What is one thing that Alabama has that Tennessee doesn't? I think
Saban.
Nick Saban. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to bet
got-
against Nick Saban.
Alabama's got the greatest coach in the history maybe in the history of football. Bill Belichick, another guy. But
they're good friends, though.
I've learned so many times as sports bettor, you can never bet against the GOAT. Whether it's Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, or Nick Saban, you cannot bet against the GOAT. For that reason, I'm
LeBron
taking
James in that
Alabama.
conversation?
Can't bet. I
no,
don't
no,
bet
no.
against LeBron. I don't bet against LeBron.
If I was
But yeah,
back then, I wouldn't bet against Michael Jordan either.
Wouldn't bet against Michael Jordan. Wouldn't bet against Kobe. Wouldn't bet against any of them. They're
No.
all in the GOAT talk. They're all the greatest of all time in their own regard for a reason. Nick Saban has
Yep.
these guys ready to go, and there's no doubt in my mind these guys are prepared for this big-time matchup. So for that reason, I had to roll with the Crimson Tide. There are some
right.
other games around the country, though, that are big-time matchups. We have 3 more ranked matchups. The biggest of the 3 probably being number 10 Penn State traveling to Ann Arbor, Michigan to take on the number 5 Wolverines. Who do you guys have taking this one? Connor, I'll start with you.
Penn State really hasn't proven to me much this season. Obviously they did beat the Auburn Tigers by a good amount of points, but besides that, I mean, they let Central Michigan score, I think, 28 plus on them this season at home too. Penn State is not. I don't know what their stadium's called, but they're not at home. They're at the Big House. They're in Michigan. I think Michigan's beaten them the past 2 years, I want to say. And Michigan looks like the same team they did last season. They don't look like the best team in the country, but they're definitely a top 10 team. I think both of these teams are overrated, though, at the end of the day, but I do have the Wolverines winning here.
That might be a hot take coming at the end of the year. So well, I'm sure we can clip that and we'll revisit that. Eli, who do you have winning that one?
Yeah, man, this game is in Ann Arbor. That environment is a really iconic place to play in. But I think these teams match up well against each other pretty well. They're pretty similar teams, I think, in talent level wise, and they both play kind of the same. Decent defenses, it's pretty much pretty similar offenses as well. So I think it's a close one. I think Michigan takes this one in a close one. Like I'm talking about 24-21 type. So I got Michigan in this one.
Yeah, big-time rivalry. It's probably the second biggest game of the week, Penn State, Michigan.
Yep.
I'm going to rock with Michigan for the sole reason that this game's in Ann Arbor. That's probably a top 5 game day environment in the country.
For sure.
I'll take the for saying that, but that's a ridiculous, crazy place to play. You got 100,000 people bearing over you the entire game, screaming in the snow, and no better place.
It's gonna be insane, man.
I got to rock with the Wolverines. Next up, we got number 8 Oklahoma State taking on number 13 TCU. Both teams undefeated. Both teams chasing a Big 12 championship for the first time in God knows how long. Who do you guys have taken this one?
You go ahead, Connor.
I haven't watched too much of either of these teams this season, although I did watch the TCU-Kansas game last week. And TCU, they didn't look bad, but Kansas' second-string quarterback played the entire second half, and although his performance was actually pretty good, they didn't have Daniels in. I think Kansas wins that game. If they did have Daniels in the full game, he didn't get hurt. Oklahoma State looks really good. They're consistent. I don't think they've played anybody too special yet, though, either. This is a road test for them, although they're in the top 10, obviously, for a reason, so I do have the Cowboys winning this one.
Eli?
Yeah, I got Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State beat TCU by like 3 touchdowns last year. And this one, it is at TCU this year, but Oklahoma State has been playing really well. But TCU's also been playing really well as well. TCU's offense has actually been pretty good. Nobody's held them under 38 points this whole season. They're both 5-0 going into this matchup. A big matchup, but I think Oklahoma State takes this one in another nail-biter. So.
Yeah, I'm rocking with OSU as well. I think TCU, big win last week. I think they're reached the peak of their season, but I think Oklahoma State takes this one. And don't be surprised if we see a rematch in the Big 12 championship first weekend of December. Last up, around the country, we have the number 7 USC Trojans taking on number 20 ranked Utah. I think the Trojans are one of the best teams in the country this year, led by Caleb Williams, their quarterback. I think in a couple years when he goes to the NFL draft, to me, he's the best quarterback in college football. I think he's going to be a first overall draft pick and have a long NFL career. Who do you guys have winning this one? I got USC. Eli, I'll start with you. Are we ready? We in for an upset?
Yeah. Well, no. Actually, I got Utah. Well, yeah. Utah's going to upset USC for sure. Utah's actually favored in this one by 3.5. And, you mentioned Caleb Williams is a really good quarterback, but he hasn't really been looking himself the past 3 weeks. He's at around 500 or 56% passing and only just for like maybe a little bit over 700 yards. So he's actually been in a slump, a little 3-week slump. And it's at Utah too. So, and Utah's quarterback has been looking really good. What's his name? Caleb Rising or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been looking pretty good, and I got Utah on this one with the upset for sure.
Connor?
I think Utah is probably the best 4-2 team in the country right now. Really, I had them winning the Pac-12 like super early this season and in the preseason. They look really good. They shouldn't have dropped that game to Florida, and quite frankly, they shouldn't have lost to UCLA last week either. Although USC has one of the best coaches in college football, one of the best players, if not the best player in college football, along with a defense that he strung together with a few of the better Oklahoma DBs and linebackers, plus some USC guys that have been playing there for 2 to 3 years. They look like one of the most complete teams in football. They haven't made any mistakes yet. They've been super consistent. I'm not going to say their defense is shut out by any means, but they can hold their own. And with the offense, created by Lincoln Riley with Caleb Williams that he's been talking to since he was 16, 17 years old, I think they can contest with about anybody in the country right now.
Yeah.
So in that, I do have the Trojans winning.
Yep. Before we get to Auburn taking on the number 9 Ole Miss Rebels, just wanted to go through our season records because we've been picking since week 1. Eli's in first place right now, 19-7.
Yes, sir.
I'm in second, 18-8. Connor is trailing in the last 16-10. So maybe this week we'll have some flip-flopping around. But let's get to
our
final game of the week.
Ahead, let's go.
We got Auburn taking on Ole Miss. Big game. Who do you guys have winning? I think we kind of got a hint of that when we were talking about our bets, but who do you guys have winning?
All right. I got Auburn, and I'll tell you why, just the reason why. So we mentioned earlier, Auburn is 6-0 in Oxford. They know how to win, and they know how to beat Lane Kiffin too. A lot of people look at Lane Kiffin as this offensive guru, as this guy. I mean, he's a good coach, but Auburn always finds a way to beat him. Even with Harsin, Harsin found a way to beat him. So I think if Auburn goes into this matchup, and I think Ole Miss is overlooking this team as well. And Ole Miss hasn't been tried really in a football game yet. They're 6-0, but they played teams like Troy and other weak opponents, which talent transfers is a weird thing to look at, but they really haven't been faced with a really, really good defense either. So I think if Auburn's defense can come out and play really strong off the bat, hopefully that'll spark our offense enough to get us a quick score here, there, and like I said the past 2 weeks, if we can just carry that momentum to the second half, we win. I got Auburn.
All right, Connor?
I think that if we get into a shootout with Ole Miss, it's possible for us to win. I also think that if somehow this week we can win a turnover battle, that is huge.
Good one.
Super important, you know.
But Unchained,
Hope so.
good one.
If we just need things to go our way this week. I don't think that Ole
Yeah.
Miss is one of the best teams in the country. I think they're good, but like Eli said, they haven't been tested yet. You know, they got tested
haven't
by
been
Vanderbilt
tested.
last week. And that's not to say that Vanderbilt's a terrible team. I've seen flashes of greatness in them this season too. But if you're the number 9 team in the country, you should beat Vanderbilt more like 42
By,
to
like,
7, 42 to
exactly.
10. You know, something
So-
like
Same way Georgia
So
beat
who's
us,
your
right?
pick? Are you
Right.
taking Ole Miss or are you taking Auburn? Who's your pick?
that. I do have the Auburn Tigers here. I think it'll be close,
Okay.
but I am picking
Good.
Auburn.
So, you know who is a terrible team? The Auburn Tigers. I don't think there's a shot in hell that we win this football game, if I'm being completely honest. I don't see a world in which Auburn goes to Oxford and wins. I think
Well, we've done
I
it
think
6 times in the last.
yeah,
you know,
but
we've done it 6
we haven't
times
gone
in a
there
row.
3-3 with 4 straight terrible performances. I personally I don't think we have a shot. But so yeah, I got
So who do
Ole
you got?
Miss.
Auburn or Ole Miss? Who do you got?
I got Ole Miss.
Shocker.
but
All
yeah.
right.
All right, that just about does it for Week 7 Strictly Auburn. Thank y'all for joining us as always. Shout out Eagle Eye TV. These will be posted there every week. Recap podcasts every Sunday or Monday whenever we end up filming that.
Wake up.
Yeah, whenever we wake up to shoot that. Also going to be posted on Laz Sports over on YouTube and lazsports.com. But yeah, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.